What the fuck? What happened to Ivy's thing? God damn it, we already have technical difficulty things.
What about
I am so sorry. I had it all set. Oh god.
And I'm just
Oh god.
gone.
Oh god. Oh god. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
she's done.
Listen, I break a lot of things, alright? So, like, please bear with me. But I had it set, and then I don't know what the hell happened.
We were
so,
all
like,
excited that we finally
please
had
bear
everything.
with me. How about this? No, what we're gonna do? We're gonna put, like, the twerking little thing right there.
Work.
Are you okay with that, Ivy? That we just have the twerking thing?
Look at me doing my exercises. Bam!
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, that's happening. I'm gonna fix this shit.
Okay.
Diana, intro us, please.
Oh. Wait, what?
I need to fix.
Welcome to Lasers and Lace. You've got
Here,
Mel,
just wait. Here,
Delana,
I got it.
Cause I can't sing. Come on. Still not. What hell? What the hell?
Here,
Oh,
You
we're-
don't have to be so
it's
formal.
going.
I start singing and we suddenly like super drop people. Whoops.
And sometimes rain. Subscribe for free on Twitch TV with Prime Gaming. Lasers and lace.
Yep. So we had all these cool raiders, and then they ninja'd the moment I started singing. So rip.
Oh, no.
Sorry, guys.
I mean,
Sorry about that, Rain.
That is Redline. Redline made us our fantastic intro because he loves us dearly.
Yes.
He loves us enough to trust us on his show. He brought us over to the New Eden Post. He doesn't know what he's done.
Mm.
You know.
But anyways, we are here to talk about 3D printing because it's cool and you can make things appear in 3D space that you can only look at on a computer screen and it's magical.
And
That's a good
you
way to
guys
put
are
it.
actually gonna get to hear Delana talk today because she's super excited about this topic and she's gonna talk more than I am today.
I've been so excited for like the past week because, I mean, first of all, y'all can tell that I'm not in my usual place because I'm at my apartment away from all the people in my house that have coronavirus. So I dragged my entire computer and my entire 3D printer to my apartment so that I could make sure I had everything ready for today.
So she can be Rona free.
That's great.
Yeah, because like my parents they both got it, but they're okay. But they got like the antibody treatment, which is like magical. But like since they qualified for it, so like me and my brother, we wouldn't get shit. They're just like, deal
bunch
with
of
it.
losers. Bunch of
And
losers.
like, you young people, you don't get it. Because we were
Welcome
probably
back to reality, Ivy, by the way.
Hmm?
Welcome back to the stream.
Oh, I'm actually here.
Yeah, I fixed it.
Yeah.
now.
See, like somebody said my
Yay.
makeup's on
Thank you
point
very
today
much.
because I was like, I kept looking because I actually have lighting here, and I was just like, wow, I need to put stuff on my face because normally I'm like in the dark because I don't.
We're getting
have...
ready, and she's like, "Oh my god, I need to go fix my eyebrows. Oh my god, I need to go put on eyeliner. Oh my god!" And she kept running back to the bathroom. So who are these people? Well, we are Lasers and Lace. We are on New Eden's Post, and you get to deal with us tonight. So
Hey,
shabam.
thank you very much for the subscribe. We really do appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, that's Ivy, or known properly in Eve is Pandora's Singularity from Sixth Empire. We have the lovely Diana Avo from Pandemic Horde. I am Mal Elikon from New Eden's most okayest C4 Wormhole Corp Pos Party. And then we are joined by the lovely Arachnos Bloodfeather, and I just realized your name tag is off and that is bothering me.
No problem.
So don't mind me, just
Her OCD's going a little
a
crazy.
little bit. Listen, look, it's
There
Don't
is
worry
a
about it.
disturbing lack of felines. I don't think she
Yeah,
brought the feline.
listen. Aim,
I did not bring the cat because she probably would have screamed the entire time driving between my house and my apartment, and then she probably would have hit under the bed for the whole time. So I was like, I'm not gonna stress out the old fat lady, which is my cat.
Which I guess that's nice that you decided not to stress out the old fat lady.
Yeah, because like just driving her 5 minutes to the vet, you'd think that we were like murdering her. Whoa! So I'm like, I'm just not gonna have her in my car doing that for an hour.
That's fair.
Yeah, and should you buy a miniature CNC milling machine? Yes. And actually,
Very few downsides.
I'm going to get two of my local friends, Codes and Creature. They're in their CNC working space right now.
Lucky
And Codes is
bastards.
like the 3D printer master, so I'm going to try to get him to chime in a little bit later once they're done doing whatever. But Codes actually, I bought my current printer from him, and he helped fix the other one that was demonic and possessed. I think he had to get some holy water on it, but
They can do that sometimes, yeah.
yeah, it was manufactured incorrectly from China, and it was bad.
I bought a printer from China and it didn't work. What do, boss? What do?
Yeah, I mean that's basically what I did, but it literally like tried to print by itself when nobody was near it.
It is what it is. But
It's not a good sign.
okay, 3D printing. We've got the guests. We've got the people. Chitter chatter. 3D printing 101.
Arachnos, tell us about yourself.
Sure. So this is my second time on the show, but I still do the basic introduction. Eve, my background is just solo player. I've been going a little bit around the world right now and going and flying with Test, partial caps as of right now. That might change very soon. Anyways, and so out of game, what I've been doing is just meeting people, and I had access to a 3D printer at work, and what's a better thing to do for a meetup than to make something for people you're about to meet, right? So from there, it's just started in trying to make more and more interesting and more complex things over time, and so the interest grew into a straight up hobby. That's what I like to do, even though it can be considered a job for a lot of people. That's what I like to do for fun. And so from there, got a lot of experience learning about different machines, different technologies, different ways to make cool stuff, so that I can basically learn over time and basically acquire knowledge on the topic, so I can help others not only just with the stuff I give them, but also make their own stuff at home. So I'd be glad to provide some advice as well if anyone's interested.
By the way, he did print this lovely Nyx for me at Eve North. Now, like almost 2 years ago. Ugh.
It's been a while.
But yeah, it's very lovely because this is one of my favorite ships. Because I have my Nyx named Stevie because I'm funny. But yeah, I love my little Nyx. Because that was before I don't know if I even had my printer working by that point. So it's just like at least I had something printed. Although now I have some things going on my own. But so Arachnos, what got you interested in the first place for 3D printing?
Well, the main thing was that I had access to one machine like that for work, and so it's not like it's extremely expensive. The plastic that was available at the time was just PLA, which is like $30 for a kilo, and the spaceship that is printed is mostly air because it's not completely full. It's usually pretty hollow. So if you're trying to make something that looks really nice, like you're trying to create a replica of your favorite ship, and it ends up costing like $3 in plastic, even if it fails a few times, just go ahead and try until it works, right? So I started by making a rattlesnake, which was at the time my favorite ship. Learned that I cannot paint anything ever, but I've gotten better over time. And so yeah, from there it's just move on to how can I like add lights? How can I make it like more shiny? How do certain plastics work better for certain things? And just trying to get better at it.
Cool. I'm so jealous of that because I think it wasn't until after I graduated from college that my college actually got a 3D printing lab. I was so jealous because like that definitely did not exist until after I graduated and I went into the library or something and I saw they had that. I'm like, what did they?
Right. Even though the technology isn't completely new, like it's existed for like 40 years almost, the thing that makes it like blow up all of a sudden is that there were patents that were preventing basically easy access to them. So now that those patents are away and everyone can chime in, a lot more creativity is involved into making the machines and sharing them and getting new ideas. So what used to be like $1 million industry can be basically produced out of a $200 machine, right? So of course, it's a weird timing, but it sort of blew up not too long ago.
Yeah, because I just feel like, yeah, it's only within the last few years, that I even like heard about this stuff. I mean, at first it was just like a cool, like little curiosity. It's like, oh, a little 3D printed thing, and now I could just see it everywhere. And then there's like all these new uses for it, like 3D printed house,
Yeah.
and all these other little things that you can 3D print parts for all sorts of things.
Mhm.
So let's see, I have all of my little things lined up. 3D printed rocket engines.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the main advantages is that when compared to traditional manufacturing, you can basically create a lot more complexity in your parts. You can make parts that don't really need to be assembled because it's just one chunk that couldn't be manufactured through regular means. So let's say like for a specific engine, I think they moved on from like over 200 parts to only 11 by going to 3D printing. So even though 3D printing metal is not quite there yet, or at least not available for everyone yet, still, yeah, it's moving up pretty quickly.
So, when it comes to like 3D printing and everything, obviously you said like, you know, what got you into it and all that. Now, as someone, obviously you, the viewers have noticed, I haven't really been talking because I know fuck all about 3D printing. Like, so, and I assume like other people watching are like, the fuck? 3D printing, the fuck is this shit? Like, do you have any tips, tricks, anything, like any advice that, like, what type of software do you use? Ivy, I'm pretty sure you could contribute to that. Same with you, Diana. All about that type of stuff, about like the type of different software you guys do use. So I know when I do have more finances and everything, should have fucking bought that GameStop stocks. I would like, I plan to invest in 3D printing because I plan to use it like for obviously print Eve spaceships, but also cosplay stuff. So like,
Right.
do you have any like tips, tricks, or anything?
Well, I think it's fair to say that we might have come from slightly different backgrounds. I feel like it's not exactly something that gets taught in school yet, right? So it's still relatively new. So I think it would be a good idea for all of us to explain the process we go through individually, because there's different machines, there's different software. Sure, some are more popular than others, but I think it's fair to say that some people will just go, I'm using this plastic on this machine, go. And others will really play with the settings to make sure that they get like the exact level of detail that they really need for some reason. So yeah, if someone wants to go first, go right ahead. Otherwise, I can take the lead on this one.
I'll just jump in first. So first, I mean, I just kind of jumped into it just blind to start with. I think I just saw like on Amazon Prime Day there was a 3D printer for really cheap. So I just bought that. I just kind of jumped into it blindly. But now I feel like, I mean, there's such a big community and there's a lot of people that are willing to help you. So I think there's like joining the community and just asking like, what's a good printer within a certain budget range, and just asking for recommendations like that, or at least looking on websites that might list good, because I mean, this printer seemed to have decent reviews on Amazon, but I mean, like I've mentioned, it was manufactured wrong. The motherboard was just bad, and then they even sent me a replacement one, and that one didn't work either. So I had to get my friend Codis to replace like half the parts for it to even work. And he's like, yeah, this will last you like a year. I'm like, okay. But then he sold me this new one, which is the Creality CR10.
Ooh.
He got me a good deal on it because he was upgrading. And it's a much better quality printer. I probably used like a bunch of my stimulus check for it. So it depends on like just starting with what printer you want, what's your budget. I mean, obviously, usually you want to start with something not super expensive, because if you're just getting into it and you're just printing like, this is the traditional first thing that 3D printers always print. It's called a Benchy.
Absolutely.
The little
so
boat.
cute.
It's
And
a
it's
bloody torture test.
Yeah, it's basically just to test like different features that would be in a print, like overhangs and holes. You could see like a little hole right there, and then like there's a little everything on the bottom to make sure like I have this one that failed. Actually, there was a bunch of spaghetti on the top because it actually lost adhesion to the bed because you could tell how the bottom of this looks kind of crappy. So it just started printing all over the place because this became unstuck from the flat surface. So it's just a good way to just test things out. And this is all PLA. And I have these are little calibration cubes, another little basic thing, like just starting small. The XYZ on it. Let's see what else. And just like finding other little things, like Thingiverse has so many free 3D files. Like you just look up anything. I'm like, I feel like printing the Nintendo 64 logo, and then I made it real.
Now, wait, did you paint that?
I actually did not. I had it was a whole pack that I bought off Amazon that had 4 different colors of filament. It had like the red, yellow, green, blue, and this one file had all of these different parts separated by a color. Like there's
really?
some printers that you can print with multiple colors, but my printers don't. So you just print like the blue parts at a time, and then just like the green ones,
and then all the greens, and then so on and so on and so on,
and then
you
just
construct it.
Yeah, you just assemble it all
Okay.
together like a 3D puzzle.
Okay. Now, what types of programs are you guys using, like, for when designing and or like uploading? Because like somehow I could relate is because for like the stuff I used to do for cosplay that I plan to get back into, I don't know. Caught it? I don't know if any of y'all have heard of Pepakura, but it's Papercraft. So
Oh, yeah.
I had like the 2D file of this, printed it out, and then like constructed this all on my own. So obviously I have this program that it shows the 3D model on one side and then like the 2D, like how the page layout and everything. Like what type of program do you guys use? I assume that there's multiple, there's different, anything like that.
If I can just take the lead for this one for a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's a few different ways to approach it. For someone that has little to no experience, going straight to something like just designing your own model from scratch and then trying to get that onto a printer could be a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging. 3D printing usually tends to be a little bit more forgiving than some other pieces of software. Like CNC milling usually needs very, very specific requirements of how the piece is designed. So if you're trying to make a helmet, for example, you might find that, well, if you just have the outer shape, it's going to just be a solid block, right? You need to also have it designed so that it also has like an inner layer that is not directly adjacent to the the outer layer, because you'd have like some parts that are so thin that it barely prints, or maybe the software might not even recognize that there should be any plastic there at all. So the part itself needs to be sort of designed for 3D printing in mind. If you go on Thingiverse, you'll find a lot of great 3D models. Some of them are not really great for 3D printing, or like you might look up for a Ferrari, like something like that. So a lot of cars, for example, that are there look awesome, and they're ripped straight from like Need for Speed or one of the more recent games that have really, really high quality vehicles. Problem is, some extremely fine details tend to just lower the quality of the print overall, because it's like, if let's say that you have like just a tiny blip on one side, the printer's going to try to put plastic there. It's not really going to stick to anything because it's so tiny, and then the printer's going to move somewhere else, leave that blip behind, and it's just going to be stuck on like the side of the door. Right?
So sorry to interrupt. I'm just
go ahead.
quickly looking at like Thingiverse, and like
Yes.
some of y'all are gonna fucking cringe, but it's like Pinterest, but for 3D printing. Am I right?
I'd even go as far as to say YouTube for 3D printing.
Okay, that's
So
that's
it's
much
instead of
better.
videos, it's models. It's just shapes. Everyone can contribute.
Okay.
Everyone can take each other's stuff and rip it off and just make their own versions. You just need to really respect that.
So
someone
it's
else
like
made
an
it,
open
mentioned them.
source 3D printing.
Exactly.
Okay, that's
Some of the
awesome.
models are more used for like 3D modeling for like Blender when you're trying to create a nice scene or something like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, some of the shapes are maybe not ideal for that, but a lot of them, I'd say actually the great majority of them are. So once you have a shape, all you need is go and put it through a piece of software that is called a slicer. Just turns a 3D model into a bunch of layers. In the settings, you can mess with basically anything, like how fast the printer moves, how hot the plastic should get, how hot the bed, like the build plate should be. You can mess with a whole lot of settings. Including like how thick each layer is. Like you can make them really thick, so that, like, let's say you're printing a cube, so the sides are going to look kind of wavy or weird, but at the same time you're also going to get yeah, that's I don't know if we're going to be able to see that very well on stream. Alright, so this is
I don't know how.
a slicer.
Oh, sorry.
Just
Did
a
I
minute,
just
just a
mess it
minute. I
up?
may be able to fix this. Just give me a minute.
I can stop. I
No,
didn't know it was
no,
gonna
I
mess
can
it
fix
up.
this. I can fix
Wow.
GitHub is actually a pretty good comparison as well. Yeah, I was going to go for YouTube,
Bear
which is
with
a bit
me.
more common or a bit well known. But yeah, actually, GitHub is a great comparison. So yeah,
No,
everyone
no,
can
put
participate.
it back.
Alright,
No,
so
Diana,
stream
put it back.
is borked.
What?
But I think
Put it back. Move it back.
Ugh.
She was using it to make the things.
There.
in just a second. Alright, great.
I didn't know that actually moving it. Okay.
Don't worry.
So
I
yeah,
just-
this
She was actually showing it to the people.
yeah, so this is a basilisk inside the slicer. So as you can see here at the bottom right, big old button is slice. So it's going to try to turn the shape into instructions for the machines. If you don't play with the settings at all, you're going to get something that usually looks pretty decent. But if you're trying to print something very specific, like this model here, you can see that it seems to have a lot of very, very small, thin, like really small parts, very small details as well.
Okay.
And that usually the kind of stuff that prevents you from just going like putting the model in, print, go, and get the final result. So some parts can be made easier than others. But yeah, this is probably a good example of what not to print first.
Oh, obviously.
Because,
It might take a little bit of getting used to.
Yeah, because
Okay.
the other thing is, see, I have all the settings here. For a lot of things that are overhanging, you would have to enable,
Supports.
where is it? The supports right here. So what this would actually look like is this, which all of the blue stuff would be the supports. Like, you see how much, like, that's all extra plastic.
Yeah.
And, so
Oh.
that is no good, because if I just do a material color, it would just be a solid block like this. And then
I see.
And that's where different types of printers and stuff come in handy too.
So potato mode.
Sort of. Well, actually, the way the supports are made is usually that they tend to be a little bit easier to break than your model. So when you try to rip them off, usually it's the support that come off and not the model itself. But depending on what you're trying to print, sometimes it's the opposite. So in some instances, it's usually a good idea to
Testing,
consider maybe
testing.
splitting the model in multiple
Testing.
parts before you print. Oh, yep, I can totally
Oh,
hear you.
shit.
okay, so I'm gonna
Um,
stop this because I want to show. Well,
Oh, yeah.
first, actually, what I ended up doing with this model. They actually had a lot of bazzy parts to this, but see, this is the bottom part that I did. I actually just had to.
And this is another great example of, like, this is a really detailed ship that different types of printers would print way more easily. Like, for example, if I were to slap that into my resin printer, I wouldn't even worry about cutting it apart. I would just stick it in and print.
Now that brings me onto the question about, like, okay, so like a basic, correct me if I'm wrong, so there's different types of printers where the base stays there and then the printer head moves, or that the base moves and the printer head stays there. And then also there's a resin printer as well, correct?
Yes, in theory, we could talk about actually 7 large branches of, like 7 large families of 3D printing.
Okay.
The kind that uses filament is one kind, or is a part of a group in particular. And so basically the kind that we're seeing here, where if you zoom in, Delana, you'd be able to see that up close, it really looks like just a bunch of lines. A great way to explain it is, for someone who hasn't seen it, is that it's a, instead of thinking of it like a complex machine, it's basically sort of like an automatic hot glue gun.
It's a hot glue gun on steroids.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
really is.
It's just automatic. It just needs to follow a specific path, and that's about it. So basically, it just creates the shape over time. The platform doesn't really need to move if the extruder can move in 2 different axes, or at least maybe even 3, depending on the model you're going for. But different technologies can use different materials, which brings up, the resin is a little bit more interesting because what it can do, okay, so if we talk about why resin is interesting, we need to talk about why specifically that kind of resin is used. It's a material that is like a squishy glue, but the magic part about it is that it's going to harden when it's exposed to UV rays. So if you can control accurately for each layer where that UV ray goes, you can get some very fine details. So something that basically is a drawback of using filament printers like the one we're seeing here is that the finish on the is going to look a little bit like this. So if your goal is to get like a very, very detailed model like the Basilisk, to get like all of its details out and not look like a bunch of stacks on top of each other, it might be a good idea to invest into a resin printer instead.
And here is a resin printer. Here
If
is
you go
a
back
house.
to the normal view,
Yeah, I'll
Wait.
stop. I can stop the share.
Right.
Okay.
There you are.
There-
Oh,
now we're back.
I have to move the
you might need to
twerking.
move the twerk, yeah. Just a second. So yeah, so the resin definitely has advantages when it comes to the quality, both in the surface finish and the precision that you can get. Some resin printers use lasers, so that would be mostly like SLA printers. That's what they're called. Some stuff like Formlabs tends to be a little bit more affordable, where it's just laser that goes, instead of going like point by point, it's a lot more accurate, though it prints slower. Something that is even more affordable is one that instead of using the laser, it's just like a regular screen, right? But instead of displaying light, it displays UV ray. And so instead of going for the accuracy of a laser, you instead go for the amount of pixels that you can cram into that screen. So it's still a lot more accurate than the traditional filament printers, but it can also like light up the entire layer at once. And layers can be very, very thin, actually. So if we're talking about the kind that I've used, I think it goes as low as 25 microns, which is...
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what my printer actually does, to be completely honest. But again, I know that I can do, and I don't know how well my camera's going to pick this up, but somebody did a file of a Baby Yoda in a ring, which I have now just dropped. But
Wait,
I
I'm
printed
sorry,
it out.
what?
The Baby Yoda on a ring as a ring.
As a what?
It's a ring. It's a ring for your finger. But it's Baby Yoda.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know how my camera is
I
zooming
was
in on
thinking
him.
of something different.
Don't
But
even-
this is where the resin versus the FDM, like the detail on this, even though the camera is not the greatest, it is absolutely phenomenal.
Okay. Now,
Let's see. My layer heights are 0.2 millimeters.
Yeah, so that's 5 layers per millimeter, so you can still see them relatively easily, whereas resin can go so half, maybe quarter, so 1/8 of that. So eight times as many layers as the print that Lana described. So at that point, it's kind of hard to see. Not necessarily completely invisible, depends on the model you're printing. But yeah, so if your goal is to get something like you might have seen on Twitter, hopefully, the mixed reality models, the spaceships made by them. If I can just get one of them. I've seen some of these babies. So basically resin prints that come with color already added into the mix. Yeah, you get those very, very smooth finishes. And so if your goal is to make something like an Eve spaceship, I guess it's a better starting point. Although the amount of materials that are available to you are slightly reduced by the fact that it needs to be a resin that hardens with UV ray specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Because let me show my completed Basilisk.
Oh yeah.
Sexy.
and then, so how did you print that one?
So this, I printed it in 6 different parts. So I had just the main body of it. I took like these side panels off, and I literally just sliced it in half through the middle like this. Because I printed each part facing straight up and down, and then just glued it into the middle.
So the wings, instead of them standing vertical, you had them horizontal and then printed, and then you cut out the supports on the bottom, and then you would like sand them and all that.
Well, I don't have my sanding here, because you could it's kind of hard to see on here, but you can kind of see the layer lines
Yeah,
a little bit.
and I
'Cause
could see where you cut it in half.
Yeah, see the little line right there.
Like, and here's again FDM. So here's the same printer that Delana uses, the CR10. So CR10, here's, you know, Aphrodite, which is somebody stole it off of whichever museum the statue is from. But you can see the layer lines. I mean, these are legs and not her boobs, but you can see the layer lines if you look at her close enough. Mind you, the print turned out freaking phenomenal. I printed this over 2.5 days because I wanted to be perfect. Whereas resin, like, this is skulls upon skulls into a skull. This guy took all of half an hour to print, and the detail that in this compared to this is equivalent, but this guy took 2.5 bloody days.
Now, is it because, like, since that is so spread out, and then compared to, like, the statue being just so close? Like, sorry, like, all together? Or, like, what would create the difference in that?
It's, at the end of the day, it's the technology and the way that they are going. Again, this guy's a hot glue gun on steroids. This guy is UV lights and a platform just slowly raising as the UV lights go ding, 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 and get the liquid to harden in each area.
The skull was a resin printer, correct?
Resin printer, yeah.
Oh, okay. Huh.
If both of them were made with filament, you'd probably find that the skull took a lot longer, actually.
Probably, yeah.
Because
But
you
this
can
guy's
consider
he's also hollow.
The area that it has to cover.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, so-
he's hollow. He's got a hole in the bottom, so it weighs like nothing.
Mm-hmm. Huh.
Yeah, and my little Bazzy, I know there's definitely some details that it didn't even bother printing because they were too small. Like, one of the little panels actually has this little bit right here sticking out, this little antenna, and the other one it actually just came off. Like, it was just too small, and I just touched it a little bit, and it snapped off. So there's some things, and there's some things on the little face right here.
Hey, Zhao, don't give us ideas of what to do to poor Philippe, because we will.
Don't
We
even
will.
at me.
We
Now-
will.
Now, since we are an Eve talk show, obviously we've been talking about Bazzies and all that shit. What would you say has been, like, the more for ship model? I see, like, Arachnos, like, is, like, breaking out his fucking trig costume, which I've seen firsthand. It's fucking amazing. But, like, ship-wise, like, what has been, like, some of the most intricate... Sorry, I can't speak. But, like, most intricate stuff. And then also that has, that you've seen or done personally to include, like, a functionality between, like, for example, a Rourke, you know, when it goes into indie mode, the containers on the side rotate. Okay, Ivy, I see you holding that, but, like...
This thing was a bitch to
Yep.
print, even on the
Hell,
Resin
that-
printer.
What is that, a NID?
It's a hell.
Oh,
Because of the
simply.
character of the ship design, like, these things, they're so paper thin
Mhm.
that every time I tried doing them on my FDM printer, fail, spaghetti mess. Even on the resin printer, this guy took me like 3 attempts before it finally freaking printed and was beautiful.
So this is a great example of something that, even though the model looks awesome, printing it is a different story entirely. So in that case, because I managed to print a hell, it took me several days worth of work to just work on the model to make it printable for FDM. And you'd need to really play with the model itself. So if you don't really have any 3D modeling experience, it can be really challenging to go for some of the more extreme holes in the game.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
yeah.
It's like you're not
I-
gonna go fucking balls deep into something right away.
Yeah, don't start Triglavian is what I'm saying.
Philippe, I will need to actually pick your brain about something else, ship model wise, because I need help printing it, because it keeps printing with a slicer error, and I've tried putting it through NetFab and everything,
That
but
sounds fun.
it's still just, it's the bane of my existence, and I need to get it printed. So I'm gonna send it to you to work your magic.
Sounds good. But to answer Mal's earlier question about the hardest thing, or the thing that seems the most impossible to print. So you mentioned the
So Lana's like,
The-
Bazzy!
yeah. yeah. So the Oracle is pretty difficult, mostly because if you take a look at it, if you really zoom in, the containers aren't really touching anything. So
Oh yeah, they're all
yeah.
in like suspension or whatever in game.
Sort of. So you need to really reinforce those, or like even if you're printing like with nylon reinforced with carbon fiber, it's gonna be really easy to break. So you need to really play with the model to get it to work. And even then, if you want to add rotation to it, it's not going to be that neat. Or if you are going to add rotation to it, you're going to need to spend a lot of hours to really add the proper gears and make sure that all the angles are right. And so yeah, so that's not something I've decided to do. If we're talking about the hardest ship to print, I think the one that I spent the most work trying to play with was actually a Triglavian ship. I tried to print a Tiamat, which was basically a Vedmak, just painted differently. So I mean, let's not sugarcoat it. It's a Vedmak, but gold. So yeah, so that I think was the one that was the most challenging because it was the models. I mean, I feel like if you compare the older models with the newer ones, I feel like the design philosophy has changed a little bit. So some of the parts tend to be a little bit more floaty.
You feel just like
and
CCP's like, okay,
isolated.
I made this ship and now I need to make another
Okay,
ship. Let's just steal
they
this
look
ship and
awesome, but yeah, they reuse some bits. So if you
what
were
it-
to take a
what is
specific
it?
part,
Moa, Gila's like.
well, yeah, that's a good example. But yeah, so if we look at something like that's a good idea. So let's take a look at the background here. So the Nestor, for example, you can see that it's one solid chunk, right?
Here, just a minute.
So it's something that doesn't really have a lot of weird geometry. If you were to take a look at, let's say, Ragnarok, all the plating bits are separate. All the connections are weird. All the little bits are basically independent shapes. And trying to print them as one is basically impossible. Even in a resin printer, it can be very challenging to make sure they work, because when you have supports and you need to remove them, you have to cut them off. If you apply any sort of tearing force,
They're
armor
gone.
plates, yeah, the armor plate's gone with it, right? And you gotta armor tank your rags, because otherwise they're shit. Anyways, so you need to make sure that some of the models have some work done. In my case, I think it was probably a Triglavian ship, but as Ivy mentioned, yeah, definitely the Hell is a tough one for sure.
I cursed that darn ship.
Yeah, cause where I got my ship model, it's like a somebody actually took all of the files from in-game, like the ship files in-game, and he just has it on a little repository.
Yeah, which I'm gonna link to Twitch chat shortly. It's
Yeah, which is
Kyle's GitHub. It's amazing. Basically everything's there, including turrets, stations, basically anything that you could dream of. It is there.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're there as they are in the game, so any floaty bits will be floating. So there are some parts on the Bazzy that is they're literally not even connected to anything. So if you try to print it as is, the printers be like, this is not attached to anything. I can't do anything with this. So then when you try to slice it, it's just not going to be there.
The printer's like, oh, okay, I'll print that, no problem. And then you go and look at the spaghetti you've got in the morning, and you're like, what the hell?
And it's like, yeah, that didn't work. So yeah, I had to cut this this thing up.
How many pieces did you end up putting that Bazzy into?
It was 6.
6.
And also, this battle is brought to you by Gorilla Glue. That's how it which has been pretty good, because the little side panels are very delicate to glue on. So I had the main body in halves, then each little panel, and then the little panels had little arms. So that's the 6 pieces. So I had to be very careful with gluing the arm to the panel, and then the arm to the side, because as the model is, there's just this tiny little point of contact on the side right here where it glues onto. So I had to make sure I just put a ton of glue on it to make sure it's stuck. And you can see on this part, it was crooked.
Were
so
her fingers stuck to the model?
I was very, very close.
I know
to
that
gluing,
pain, but
on
not from
several
3D
occasions.
printing.
But yeah, I
this
tried
pain.
adjusting this part and it snapped off. So that's why there's a big space right here. So there's some other things you really have to be careful with these parts because some of them can be very delicate, and you breathe on it and it snaps in half.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'm very proud of this print. It's at least kind of preliminary, I know, but it's the Vital Shift skin for it, so I'm just going to paint little red lines. And maybe eventually I'll get it to be to have LEDs in it, because the Vital Shift skin in game, when you go into warp, the lines change from red to blue, which looks really neat. And every time I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's my favorite skin for the Bazzies. So, and I know it usually has the Caldari symbol up on here on the little panels. So,
Which
that's
one
my
was
next
it again?
part.
Which skin?
The Vital Shift.
Thank you.
What is it called? Vital
Here,
Shift
I'm
Ego.
pulling it up.
Something like that. But I love that skin. I always call it the little black dress of the Basilisk.
Yes. So Agent Black there asked the question: is there a 3D printing service that I can upload the files and they'll ship them to me? So yes, that's a thing.
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So you'll find that available in many different ways. Either through local Facebook groups, hey, I have this printer, I'll print this for you for cheap. And also there are companies that do that. For example, if you're in Canada, there's Voxel Factory that offers prints with various machines with 3 of the main branches of 3D printing. So that would be for filaments, for resins resins that harden with light, and for powders that basically fuse together with lasers. Again, magic.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, so to fully answer the question, you'll find people locally through small groups. If there's a library nearby, they also usually have 3D printers nowadays because they can be pretty
This is
silent. So if you want to try your hand at it, I actually recommend you do that first before trying to get a company to make that for you. But as mentioned, some of the files themselves, some of the ships can't really be edited very well, or rather can be printed well, so you need to edit them. And a lot of printing services are not file or shape editing services. Modeling services are usually a little bit separate. So depending on some of them, it's possible that the services will just take it and send it to you. But some of them are a little bit trickier than that. So it depends on what you're trying to do.
So
I just took a little search. For example, there's 3dhubs.com with online 3D printer service. Upload a CAD file for an instant 3D printing quote. Order 3D prints for
There's
prototyping
so
and
many
production
different
in less
places
than 2
to get
minutes.
stuff.
Lead time from 4 days. So,
Try
yeah.
local Facebook groups and stuff first, because the actual professionals, they're gonna charge you an arm and a leg.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
if I were to get something printed that my printer couldn't do, I'd probably ask my friend Codis. He's
Yeah.
only an hour away, and he's got some crazy machines.
So Derigzen says, or Fab Labs, I don't know what that is, but I was gonna say, up here in Ottawa, the Ottawa Public Library, some of them actually have 3D printers that you can. Oh my god, I fucked up the goddamn motherfucker. I'm so sorry.
And that's how I got started, to be brutally honest, into 3D printing. I discovered myself as the unfortunate recipient of a super nasty dog attack, and I had nothing to do with my time, so I went over to my local library to get some books the one day, and they had a 3D printer, and I decided that my very first 3D printing task was I was going to 3D print myself an Iron Man mask, and not just the mask, the full helmet and everything, but the library would only let you rent out the 3D printer for 4 hours at a time, so I had to do it in pieces. So 27 pieces later, it was finally finished, but it was something for me that, one, it got me out of the house when I was going stir crazy because I couldn't do anything, but it was kind of like a sanity break. I don't know if the other people can relate, but being able to watch something that you want to build get brought to life layer by layer by layer, and yeah, I guess sometimes it's like watching paint dry, but it's it's therapeutic to a point. And then from there, like I've always been a crafty person. Like you guys know, I'm always doing some sort of arts and crafts on the show. So here I am rolling paper flowers. But again, it was my local library that happened to have a Cricut paper cutter. It does paper, vinyl, leather, wood. It does the whole thing. And I'm turning spaghetti noodles of cardstock into pretty flowers. So it's like 3D printing. I would definitely say is a venue into, once you've learned how to do that skill, it opens up so many other possibilities of where you can go with it. Like I never would have thought about doing vinyl printing or half the crap I'm doing now, but it all started with 3D printing, which, 4 or 5 years ago was super expensive and I never would have considered it. But here I am now. I have 4 in my basement. And I have a Cricut paper cutter sitting right beside me.
Last I
have
heard,
a small
Ivy,
problem.
you had 3 3D printers.
Huh?
Ivy has a problem. This is actually an intervention. This is not the
Guys,
No.
welcome
I
viewers. We're all gonna express our concern
Surprise, Ivy!
with
This is an
Ivy.
intervention.
Okay, so I'd like to remind you that all that cool, awesome swag, while yes, Philippe was a part of it, all those
I
little
barely did
pods,
anything.
all those pods, that was me at the time on one printer.
Oof.
And I spent hours and hours printing those pods because I love you community. So I needed more so I can bring you more swag.
I mean, that's
If
fair.
there's one main downside to 3D printing in general, it's that it's not really ideal for large quantities or large volumes. I depending on your settings, you can really
Swag.
change the speed at which you print. You can change if you make all the layers a lot bigger. It'll take much less time to, far less time
But
to.
your quality.
But quality suffers. There's a lot of things you can do. Basically, the higher the quality, the lower the speed.
Yeah.
The print time. So if you want to go for something that looks good, like a small pod, like still have Ivy's right here. Hold on just a second. I gotta get it. It's made with rainbow filament, which makes it magical. All right.
Oh my god.
So
rainbow
even a
filament?
small pod, there you go. So it's basically a filament is basically just a long strand of plastic, and
But it's different colors. It's
if
rainbows.
while making that filament they change the pigments used,
Oh my god, that's awesome.
eventually it's going to change color, right? So if you have that going mid print, then you've got something that goes from green.
Bless
to
the green screen, just picking this shit
Yeah,
up.
sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
All right. So yeah, it looks probably a little bit cursed, but yeah, trust me, it's beautiful. So it goes from green to yellow to orange to red. So if you can get something like that, something like that should take at least 3 hours.
That's
guessing
really
for
fucking
something that good.
cool.
So yeah,
And
it's
those-
awesome, but
And those guys, I had
Wow.
like people are like, oh, well, why don't you load your printer and just do like 8 of them at once? I couldn't. I had to do max 4 of them at a time because any more and they would knock themselves over. They would, one would pop off and then bang into another one. So the magic number was 4. 4 was safe to print at a time. I printed out 200 of them, people. 4 at a time.
That thing must have been running 24/7.
It was.
Jesus Christ, women.
And
I'm dedicated to you guys.
I know, and we appreciate that, Ivy. You know that. Even the little twerky emoji above you is very grateful.
I
of
don't
it.
know why he's been humping my head this entire show.
why not?
so Jao says want to buy printed Genopod, which is the other thing. I don't have these on me because I gave them to people for Christmas, but I did get all these different fancy colored filaments. I just got a gold filament, a
Philly's
shiny,
pulling out all his pods right now.
shiny gold.
I mean, I could go like color by color, or I could just bring out a bag. I have an obscene amount right here, so
Why do you
I-
have so many pods?
Y'all talking about 3D printing.
It's a great
I'm
test
just
print.
like-
Okay, can I just interrupt everything and be like and brag about how awesome the pod is? Okay, so hear me out. The pod, awesome. Let me explain why. So it's the bottom part. If you print it vertically like this, it's kind of weird because it'll need so many supports. Because the way the printer works, it starts at the bottom and goes slowly to the top. So when it reaches this height right about there, when it gets suddenly much wider, while the plastic, when it gets placed there, it's going to fall to the ground, right? It needs some supports to be there. And so the pod is a great way to test a printer maybe even more so than a bench sheet, in my opinion, because there is a lot of different things that this can tell us. You can test your supports with the bottom parts. Of course, it's not huge, but it's still a great way to do it. And one of the great tests is the speed at which the printer goes and how long does it need to take a break. Because when it reaches the top, it goes just in a circle for a few times, just barely going up every time it does that. So it doesn't really leave any time for the heat to just go away from the plastic. So if you do a print, just print a small test pod, and it gets very mushy on top, that's a great indication that you need to either slow down the printer or maybe play with minimum time settings so that each layer the printer gives it each layer just a little bit of time to cool down. So yeah, the pod is what I've been using when I've been testing a new filament or testing a new printer or calibrating it. This is what I go for. So it's not really on purpose, but you end up these can add up pretty quickly if you have to work with 3D printers.
Yeah, this is true.
So in my case, I have a lot of them that are eventually going to be given away, of course, to attendees of Eve North, because why not? Because also pods aren't necessarily useful on a regular day basis. So yeah, it's my pleasure to give them away and know that they were also used to calibrate 3D printers.
Darazan, Adam Savage just mentioned the other day that for some of the films he did, they had like 10 printers 24/7 in parallel. Yeah, again, like I trained my dad how to reset my printer so that it was never not running while I was at work. So the moment they heard the beep, he knew to come down, clear the platform, and hit start again on the printer, and it would do the entire process all over again, all 8.5 hours of it. So the printer was running nonstop for like 2.5 months, and then I was like, hey, let's add more. And my mother's like, we're adding more? And I'm like, yes, more printers. And Rundle says, we send to print houses for work sometimes. Companies who have warehouse floors for printers just running 24/7. That's my bedroom right now. I kid you not. There's my bed. And then at the foot of my bed is my 4 printers. Because while I'm sleeping, if something goes wrong, my printer's alarm, and I have a problem, people. I really do.
I said this is an intervention. But yeah, so a lot of printers have sensors that can help detect when something goes wrong. Sometimes the part gets knocked over. Yes, some of them will beep. Some of them go on silent mode and just stop, which is also an option. If you need to sleep, that's definitely helpful. So yes, having
sleeps for the week. Come on.
It has its uses. Let's put it this way.
On stream, you shall see. This is an ornament that I made for Christmas with my really pretty sparkly red filament.
Oh, those were pretty. Your cats?
Well,
the ornament ones.
The ornament ones, which were actually made using vase mode, which is a different way that the slicer can process your file if it's something like that, which is roughly symmetrical and it's kind of just vase shaped.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing layer by layer with something in the middle, it literally just spirals from the bottom to the top. Now there's nothing in the middle of it. It's literally just like a vase shape.
They're hollow. They're really smushy.
Yeah. So you have to handle it very carefully because
What's that smushy filament, Philippe? Is it TPU? TPU. Yep. You'd be like, and it's like.
So yeah, some filaments are a lot. Well, they have different properties. TPU is the one that you'd use to make anything that needs to be squishy. The cool thing about it is that you can change the squishiness. You can get different filament manufacturers, of course, and some of them are squishier than others. But you can change the squishiness through your slicer settings, which might not make a lot of sense until you consider that you can play with how many layers are used to make the perimeter, the outside of your shape. So if you're printing a cube and you just have one layer outside everything, it's going to be very easy to squish. If there's 3 layers, it's got a different toughness to it. So you can change the mechanical properties of your parts through its slicer as well. So that can take a little bit of playing around with, depending on what you're trying to make. If you need some gears or stuff that acts like springs, of course, that might take a few different tries. But yeah, TPU is really awesome for that use.
Now, what slicer are you using, Delana?
I use Cura, which
have you tried anything else?
Well, Cura is is fairly basic slicer. that if you could just take a file from Thingiverse, throw it into Cura, and as long as Cura likes it and it has no problems with the pieces, you can just print it. Like, what you have to end up doing? Sorry, English. You have to take a little SD card like you would use in your camera.
We can swap to French for you if it's easier being down in Nolene.
Well,
Philippe?
Absolument.
So I put it on my SD card, and it's just on my USB plug. So you save the file from Cura onto the SD card, plug it into the printer, and then it prints. Mesh Mixer is something I actually just got. It helps you like edit the file a little bit more, but it's still like it's not super complicated. But it has like some more functionality with like how you want to mess with the shapes. If I really want to get technical, I have 3ds Max, which is directly a 3D processing software where you can literally just draw. That's like when you want to really get into the nitty-gritty of 3D modeling. Now I have this because I was doing some 3D modeling classes online when I was in a kind of crappy job, and I wanted to at least do something that I felt like could be productive. Like it could be something you do for fun, but also like since I'm now in my degree is in engineering, but my job is now also in engineering, and there are some 3D modeling of parts for the machinery at the refinery. So it can go from there. But this is just like 3ds Max. I did use that for some things when I really want to get down into like editing each little polygon and face of the model, which if you don't know what you're doing, you go very wrong when you're trying to get it to actually print.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Because if it's not manifold, then the printer does not like that. Or the slicer doesn't like it, and the printer's just gonna be like,
I'm playing with that Kyle GitHub. I'm actually trying to work on an Archon model, and the model looks fantastic, but when it actually prints at the top of the second kind of jut out where there's a big hole there, there's just nothing there. But when you look at the slice, it's like, well, it's supposed to have a top, but when it goes to print, the printer's like, nope, no top for you. So I've tried putting it through NetFlab. It doesn't want to fix it, and that's my dilemma for you, Philippe. Help me,
I'll take a look at
Obi-Wan
it.
Kenobi.
yeah, see, like Philippe, I guess you'd have to, go in, and sometimes you gotta get somebody to fix little
Yep. So
things
there's
on
a
it.
lot of there's a lot of software that can do that. The ones you mentioned are usually optimized to go for slicers, so that you can get the best 3D prints as possible. I've learned some other pieces of software. You might be familiar with SolidWorks, which is more engineering level. But
Have you tried Blender or Maya?
But that's the thing. Maya is a little bit more professional. I played with the free version for a little bit, but it expires. So there are some free software that can be used for 3D editing that are not meant, or that are not supposed to be 3D or related to 3D printing, but actually can work fairly well. So Blender is one that has so many uses that I feel like if you want to get into 3D printing, I'd recommend you get at least some of the basics of how to manipulate the Blender interface, because from that point onward, if you go like, 3D printing is boring for me, I want to do 2D animation, you can keep using Blender. If you want to learn how to do shaders and compositing to create like photorealistic scenes, you can stick with Blender. If you want to make props for video games, you can stick with Blender. So Blender is actually a really useful tool for more than one reason.
And it's free.
And it's completely free. That's the main part. And there are some add-ons and supports that help make sure that it really works. But yeah, so if you are completely new to 3D modeling, there's something that comes for free, pre-installed basically with any Windows 10 device, which is called 3D Builder.
I love that thing. I love that thing.
So it is the most intuitive piece of software for 3D editing I've ever seen. So it's just basic shapes. You can squeeze them, you can turn them, and you can place them. It's mostly it. But you can also import 2D images that are black and white and create 3D shapes out of that. You can basically, it's actually deceptively powerful if you know exactly how to use it. But at its base level, you can create something that looks like a house if you've never touched it under a minute. And I've given that to high school students, and it is very easy to pick up. So if you want to get some bases into that, that could be a thing to look into, because it's probably pre-installed on your computer already. But yeah, so Blender is a good way to look at it. Otherwise, you could also take a look at more professional or more engineering level software like Fusion 360, which is also available for free, and something that is, I'd argue, possibly more powerful. One of its main advantages is that you're not building by looking at the part and going, that looks good. You just go, this needs to be exactly this long with this exact angle, like place it properly according to my exact specification. So if you have some kind of plan to work with, whether you're trying to print a spaceship or something that is actually functional for your house, like you're repairing something and you need a piece of plastic that has the right shape, then I guess maybe going for something more like Fusion would be a good way to do it. It appears that Mal has found something new to put on the screen. Let's take a moment.
Still minded dancing Eevee.
I know. I don't know
think
if
that
anybody's
works too, yeah.
noticing the faces I was just making, but I never even opened. I mean, I have it's Paint 3D. I have on my system, which is it just came with Windows 10. I know there's 3D Viewer, but there's Paint 3D, and I'm like, I just opened it. I've never even looked at it before, and they have like some 3D files that they just have already. I'm just looking at a sunflower, and I'm just like turning it around. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, this actually has a surprising amount of things going on in this program for something that literally just comes with Windows.
Look at Philippe, you've blown somebody else's mind. Well, again, I apologize, guys. I'm sitting here rolling paper flowers because it's for something I'm working on, and I have to do like 80 of them, and they take me a while each because, you know, I'm crafty like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty nice. So of course, after a while, you might get sick of that. And let's say you have let's say you're asking you're trying to make something huge and you need maximum detail because you really care about the ship and you want it to look good. And it takes 2 days to print. You've got a lot of time on your hands. So yeah, making flowers, awesome choice.
Roll some paper flowers, yeah.
So I was just looking at flowers in this
Isn't-
3D program. I'm like,
Isn't
wow.
it sad that all my printers are currently running, and I'm like, yep,
Such a shame.
I still have other things I should be printing right now, and I have no printers to print them.
So I've been looking at like my next.
I deserve
things to
another
print.
printer, right? I deserve another one. I need another one, guys. Can I get another one?
Let's stick with 4 for a little bit.
I need
Nah,
another
Ivy, get another one. You know you
Yeah.
want to.
So it's also almost the biggest problem now for me now that I have 3D printers is like, what am I going to print? It was easy around Christmas because I was just making ornaments and
I
then
made
like
it killing around Christmas because people were like, "Can you help me do my Christmas presents?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, $20."
yeah, and for my uncle who really likes Ferraris, I know we actually brought up cars, but I had to be careful with this print. But because somebody had it was a model as in Ferrari Berlinetta F12. I don't know, but it looked nice, and I'm like, because my uncle actually has the Ferrari California, but they didn't have that model. And I'm like, I'm not about to whip up a car model from scratch, because I'm not, that's just not going to be, I didn't have that kind of time. So I just found this Ferrari F12, whatever. Like, I'm going to print this. And luckily, whoever put the model up actually had it somewhat optimized for 3D printing. So it came out okay. I used the sparkly red filament, so it was nice and pretty because I wasn't about to start painting a lot of stuff either. Although I did fill in like the windows with the black paint. The tires are printed out separately with the black filament, and then I just glued it all together. And I made a little base for it. I actually made a little base in 3ds Max, just like a little trapezoidal prism, as you would say. It just kind of flares out at the bottom.
So cute and birdie.
So and my uncle really seemed to like it because I wanted to do something that like 'Cause
Yeah,
we
but
were
something like
we were
that's
just
unique
doing like a
too, right?
little kind of like Secret Santa kind of deal within the family. So it was like something that was below $30. Like I got a cool book and a pair of socks. So I was like, that's cool. We were just keeping it simple because we weren't meeting for Christmas for like the first time in forever. So some things were getting flown out to my family members who live in like Connecticut or whatever. So we were keeping it fairly small. But yeah, I made a little card for my uncle and he loved that. And I made some little like low poly cats figurines for my grandma because she loves cat stuff. She has glass figurines all over her house of cats. And she
And now
loved
she's
them.
got plastic.
Yeah, now she has plastic cats because she hasn't had plastic cats. So she loved that. So just some little things like just handmade things, even if it's just like little low poly cat that you saw in Thingiverse and it took an hour to print but some people just love that kind of thing and it blows their mind when you try to explain like how a 3D printer even works. Although now that I understand it, it's just like seems pretty simple. Yeah, it's just like a hot glue gun on steroids that just does a layer and then does a layer, does a layer. Or if you do it in vase mode, it goes around and around and around. But it's super neat, and I'm gonna keep printing stuff. And now I'm just gonna have I'm gonna spend all of my money on filament so that I can keep printing stuff.
Alana brought up an interesting point, which is paint, because you might think, well, it seems like those plastics have weird names that I'm not familiar with, like what the hell is ASA, what the hell is TPU, what kind of paints can be used with that? Basically anything, actually. Acrylic
It
paints.
paints so nicely too. Like they
Paint is very fun. The basically what is considered highest grade is Tamiya paint, but if you have some, I'm not sure if the word in English is still gouache, but if you have
Now,
basically any paint, just slap it on there and,
would the same
and
type
make sure not to get it everywhere.
would the same type of paint that you use for like Warhammer miniatures work for that as well?
Dude, I use dollar
Yes,
store paint.
that's-
It works great.
Oh, okay.
Basically the same thing, yeah. Actually, if you take a look at, let's say you're going to a hobby shop and you find like D&D miniatures, some of them were probably 3D printed on.
Oh, I know some people that are actually now 3D printing their Warhammer guys instead of forking out the hundreds of dollars for them.
Yeah. Tricky part is still getting the models, but once you have that, you can make thousands. Yeah.
I may or may not have been asked to make some Blood Angel commanders and stuff like that from my honey on the resin printer. But he's got to wait in line because there's orders ahead of him.
So yeah, I need to start designing some stuff, make myself a little business. And I haven't even gotten to the paint thing yet, but that's one thing I need to get into. Because I know like there's some things like if you really want to make a fancy model, you could you use sandpaper to sand down if you have the layer lines, make it really smooth, and then you have primer that you put on it before you paint it, and then you put the stuff over paint to really finish it, to give it a finish and to make sure that the paint doesn't get damaged. So that you can get really fancy with painting it, which I need to start messing with once I can go to art stores or something.
And if you go to like the cosplay level, people who are like 3D printing their stuff and then painting them, like some of the things these people are doing, like I saw one guy with an Iron Man suit and his print was so nice and the paint job on it was just mwah. Like that was some pretty kick, and the whole thing 3D printed, weighed next to nothing. Like awesome.
Yeah, I saw on the 3D printing subreddit. That's another good resource for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, this is true.
3D printings on Reddit. But somebody 3D printed the entire suit of I don't know, I haven't seen some of the later Iron Man, but like Pepper's suit.
Oh, her rescue suit, yeah.
Yeah, like it was her suit, but it had like the lights on it and everything. Like it looked like it came straight out of the movie.
Yeah.
And it was all 3D printed and painted, and they were actually wearing it. It is like, it looks like she was, just stepped out of filming it. Like some of this stuff is impressive.
And it's even cooler when some of these people have them like electronically rigged, where they press a button on like their hand or something, and then their face mask opens, or Like you see inside some of these people, like they've got little fans and everything going to keep them cool while we're wearing these. Like the amount of electronics and that people can do in these things with just 3D printing is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. So something that I've run into is that if you want to get something that has light or electronics in there, well, you need to either work really long on the model to make sure that it's hollow to have the right dimensions to hold the batteries and to hold the LEDs, and the plastic itself needs to be transparent so the light can shine through, or have actual holes in there. So yeah, depending on what you're trying to do, you might need to really play with the model. Or in the case of something I did recently, you might have seen on Reddit, I made a Myrmidon. So the Myrm is really thin, so it's not really ideal to have anything that comes out of it. But I went out to find some glow-in-the-dark glue, or not glue, just paint. So glow-in-the-dark basically makes it look like you just put it like it's the
I was gonna say, if you want
window
glow in the
parts.
dark filament, friend, you just let me know. I got a whole roll of it I'm not using.
That sounds interesting. But yeah, so I linked a gallery here so if you want to take a look at it. So instead I went with lights in the base. So the bottom looks like the Upwell structure with like the 4 projectors going into the middle. So yeah, so you can if the model is too thin, it doesn't really allow anything. Like if you're trying to print a Garmer or something very thin, you might not be able to get anything to work with it. But if you use the environment around it, like a base or a structure that can illuminate for you, yeah, you remove some of those constraints and you can get something that still looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, I just found a model actually just before we went live. I don't know, Mal, if you can throw that on there. But like, this is one of the things I need to print next, and they actually made it so that yeah, that you could put LEDs in it, and it should be transparent enough, and they put a pattern on it so that it would have little holes for the light to go through.
Delana's so excited.
It's so funny because my friend Creature, who runs his 3D printing Discord server, he uses this as his icon, and he's working on So it is called the Fuck Octopus. It is an octopus with a bunch of its tentacles all doing this, and it is wonderful. And somebody did a remix of it on Thingiverse from the original file to make it so that it could have the little holes to show an LED through. It's pretty great because, like, I don't know.
It's awesome. We know.
It really
It
is, yeah.
Ah.
So just take the right model and the right plastic and you can get there for sure. Oh, there we go.
I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Which I love that thing. I saw it because I was just looking for like that file because it actually has like the shape in the back that is just one thing doing this. Because on Thingiverse,
There you go.
can
It's
see the
It's
model.
a nightlight for your children now.
Yes,
Oh,
look at
nice.
it, the
Kids.
lovely.
I would love that as a nightlight. Like here are other, like look at that, that's amazing. And then it's just like,
What's? Do you know what? When I see that, it reminds me of that Samuel L. Jackson. Go the fuck to sleep.
Because you can see on Thingiverse, you can actually view the 3D file like in 3D view, so you can rotate it and see in the back that there is the hole in the back of the model to let the light shine through it.
Let
so
the
that
light
it's
shine in.
the one middle finger.
Oh god. guys are
This
fun.
is what people can do with art.
This is what it was all about.
Yeah,
Um,
this is all what it's about, to make an octopus flicking off everybody.
Cool.
Art. So,
so,
We're gonna start wrapping up, guys. 'cause
Yeah.
I love you all to pieces.
yeah, because I don't know if you can top that.
I mean, like
404 is here.
we're oh look, 404 is here.
But the printer's
We
not
found
found.
him!
The printer's not found. But we're gonna do a special thank you. Thank you so much, Philippe, for taking the time yet again to come out. You're like
Pleasure's mine.
the resident Eve North Triglavian, so I'm like, I need printer dude, come with me. So, you know,
Oh, now
We-
he's doing. He's got.
It was even better because on the pub crawl, like he didn't even sign up as his name. Like he wrote it all in Triglavian. Like he learned the triangle language, people.
Yeah, actually,
But-
on the pub crawl video, I hadn't figured it out yet, but now I do. Yeah.
But I just want to say, guys, again, thank you to everybody who stuck around and listened to us go on and on about 3D printing and all the excitement. Like actually, Delana got super excited and like she was chatty Cathy tonight. So we're gonna do more of this. But next week,
Yep. Thank you very much to everyone. Like Ivy said, thank you very much for everyone that did come out and everything. Next week we have a very serious topic coming up and everything. I don't know if we want to say what we're doing.
we're gonna do what's important to us, guys. And again, my name is Pandora Singularity. I am with the Sixth Empire, and the Broadcast for Reps movement is very near and dear to my community's heart, and I know it is very near and dear to my co-hosts' hearts. And we believe that it is a topic that needs to be discussed more than one time a year. So we are going to next Thursday be discussing Broadcast for Reps, and we're gonna go talk about that. And again, is it only about the war and Eve and who's shooting who? No, because Eve is not just shooting space pixels. Oh my god, but
Space pickles.
space pickles. All I can think is my daughter's T-shirt now. I'm a pickle. But Eve is also the community, and the community has proven time and time again that even though we're complete and utter a-holes in game, we are there for each other out of game. So we're going to talk about Broadcast for Reps. We're going to talk about the things that matter to us and the avenues that are available to you when you need them.
And also just another thing is that a lot of people I've noticed multiple times people tonight were like, the fuck is this shit? I looked at Eve. Once again, we're Lasers and Lace. Yes, we're all Eve players. We're going to talk about like Eve shit, but also we're going to have nights where we're talking about 3D printing and how some people in the scene and everything, you know, do this type of stuff. And we don't really want to talk about the war all the time because that's what everyone wants to fucking talk about.
I don't want to talk about the war.
I mean, like, a couple times, but if you want, like, war gossip, go watch Trash Talk Tuesdays. It's, like, it's fucking amazing there.
Yes.
But
Very funny.
just...
And I heard that Pandora Singularity like totally murdered somebody last Tuesday, like completely
She
just
did.
savagely.
Oh no!
Did. It was great.
But yeah, no, and look, Ivy, someone is, oh, perfect, you already responded to them. Yeah, no, just... this is who we are, and you know, like, if you don't like it, suck my dick for a limited time only. Like, you could, there's other people streaming Eve, whatever, fuck off.
Well, watch them.
Yeah, go watch them if you want to be like,
Ducky.
yes, yeet the meat, guys, yeet the meat. But yeah, no, guys, who the fuck, we're gonna end it on that. Who are we gonna go raid?
We're gonna raid people, and like Mel said, if you don't like us, the door's over there because we don't care.
But if
Could
you do
raid
like
who
us,
we like.
please stick around.
Yeah, if you like us, stay with
Eric's
us.
New Eden post is actually Redline. Believe
It's
it or
Redline. We love Redline.
not. Redline's dope.
Let's go.
Line.
Yeah, yo.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's go raid. No, since this dude raided me on my own personal stream last night, let's go raid my left arm. Apparently, he's like a high sec miner, so like,
Let's give the miner some love.
yeah,
Hell
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so my left arm, all one word, Redline, let's do this, and you know what, we are gonna play the outro song for all of you wonderful people, alright, but first,
Dance
Crank that volume
party.
wait, no, we're gonna do the regular outro.
Welcome
Alright.
to Lasers and Lace. You've got Delana and Ivy and Mal and sometimes Rain. Subscribe for free on Twitch TV with Prime
Gaming.
Lasers and Lace.
Alright.
Bye, guys.
Alright, we're gonna
Thanks, guys.
do dance party.
As he says, bye bye.